Okay, 5:36. Let's do roll call. Robert Boris, Commissioner.
Bill Groves, Commissioner.
Suzanne Ellery, Commissioner.
Susan Allen, Commissioner.
Kyle Schrader, member.
Thank you very much. We have a couple new members. Kyle has joined us. Kyle, do you want to introduce yourself or say anything?
Sure. My name is Kyle Schrader. I live 5 minutes down the road on Buddington Road. I'm a commercial real estate agent during the week, every day. Yeah, I'm interested in. I'm here to kind of get the word out and bring more revenue, bring more businesses to.
Thank you for joining us. Kyle's very enthusiastic to help with outreach, and I'm very pleased and grateful for your energy. And we also have another young man who just started his political career. Joe De La Cruz is joining us. He's here next meeting, and we're grateful for that as well. I'm really enthusiastic about. We've had some great interviews and meetings, and Kyle and Joe, I think, are exactly what we need to kind of push things forward, kind of get conversations going, and get some of our objectives. So,
What firm do you work for?
I see more real estate.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, it's welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And there's
See more real estate.
Leanne. Hi, Leanne.
Hey, Leah.
Leanne, welcome.
Welcome.
Who's supposed to be sitting here?
Feel free to take the
You're-
seat
well-
you like.
Thank you, see,
You can,
let's see, who am I gonna be? No. What do you mean, out of that one? Nope.
you need no introduction. Just move it over.
All right. Public communications, do we have any?
We do not have anybody in person, nor do we have anybody remotely.
Okay,
I will say I don't have, I wasn't able to make a copy of the attachment that was sent by Lauren, so unfortunately I'm blind here with regard to that.
You have a copy of the minutes? Thank you. The agenda, thank you.
Could I have a copy, please? Thank you.
sorry.
May I ask a question? Would public communications be where you're gonna be taught? Let me see, did you change this list? Was there something on here about 117? On the original one?
Was the minutes, I think, from last year.
I beg your pardon?
Was the minutes from last month, the woman community talked about?
We are going to be talking about Center Groton under new business today.
Oh, you will be?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Sure.
Case, approval of minutes. Did everybody have a chance? Any comments on changes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, so passed. All right, old business outreach.
Business outreach. So I did have Laura send a message out to everybody last week. I'm not sure if you saw it. Just asking, or it was this week. No, it was last week. I'm confused now. Asking if you had it, you could stop in and visit your local business. I was able to stop into a couple businesses last weeks. Shades of Mystic and Burgie, which are located on Water Street. They're some of the two of the newer businesses that are on the second floor there by Outpost, and had a nice conversation with them, gave them the card. Both of them are involved with the Mystic Chamber, but not with the larger Eastern Connecticut Chamber. So I let them know what we could offer them. Gave them the card, gave them pages information, and they both seemed excited to talk. Taylor from Burgie said they're thinking about running some kind of like meet and greet with all the businesses up there with the town. I said, well, let us know if you want us to be involved, we can help. So we'll see if he wants to. But they didn't have anything to share as far as challenges or opportunities. I asked a little bit about that. So did anybody else get a chance to visit any businesses last couple months?
So I talked with Ron Apicelli, Ron's Guitars on Route 1, and also Jim Lampos, who is Pizza Palace. And I talked with a lot, but one of the things I approached, of course, with the EDC is interest in rejuvenating a Groton specific downtown business group that we would be very happy to support and down the same lines as what Mystic has done in the past. And the EDC's point would be to participate in any of the special events they're trying to put together and such like that. Feedback I got, especially from Ron, I've known him for a number of years, was he owns the building but left kind of the business and someone else took it over and the other guy just didn't do it, so he took it back over again. He's very specialized, but he was very adamant that he expected to see more growth, and what kind of Jim Lampos has his own clientele is the population, consumer population, I guess is the way to best say it, is fairly stagnant in Groton. So existing businesses seem to do okay, but they're the newer businesses that try to come in, and Ron kind of alluded to the guy that took it over, is it's very difficult because it's not like we have a growing or even a turnover of that. So it kind of tied in with what we've been saying all along is bringing in, increasing our housing to facilitate the expansion of EV and all, will bring in a whole new group of consumers that will make it more conducive for a business person or a property owner to develop what they have or rejuvenate what they have. And it's kind of common sense. We've talked about a lot, but what I'm starting to hear it from the businesses, and I think that's really what this whole what we should be getting from these business owners, because it gives us something that we can document down and be able to go to the councils. This is some of the feedback, and it really tied in nicely with council asking us to reach out to the non-occupied businesses. Why aren't we doing something with them? The financial risk involved in opening up and doing stuff, you know, has to be measured to what the demand in the market is and such. So I think it's a start that we can expand off of.
And thank you. I know you were trying to get a meeting set up for the subcommittee, so I'm enthusiastic to participate in that over the next month. And I know Kyle reached out as well. I think we're really energized, and I had some conversation with Leanne about this. We set up a subcommittee so we can continually work on outreach and discuss those issues on an ongoing basis. And Suzanne is heading that. So we're trying to figure out ways to empower and make that later on. We'll discuss some of the tools that the staff has put together, but I encourage everybody to answer the request for a meeting time and help facilitate getting that meeting together.
Suzanne, feel free to let us know if staff can help with setting up a meeting time and reserving a room, whether it's to canvass folks about what dates and times work for people, or just to pick a few dates to have the first meeting.
I wasn't sure if you had reached out to Lauren on that, or if you had wanted me to reach out to Lauren for that. You sent me a message.
Yeah.
Responded.
I can help. I'm learning. I guess she's a good resource we go through her to kind of reach out to everybody to set up the.
That's really
It's the
the,
appropriate way.
Yeah.
yeah, it's very, she happens to be out this week.
Right.
But yeah, typically that's very.
I'll reach out to her when she gets back next week.
Okay, perfect. And I'm here to help in any way. I'm not abdicating. I'm just enthusiastic to have somebody spearheading that. Yeah.
Do we have anything to hand out to the people when we go to see them?
Right now, I was using this.
Okay,
I think it's this.
yeah,
It's a postcard that basically is, it's got the exploremore.com, and then I also tell them about the other Greater Groton website. And that just says some of the things that we can do. And then I know we're going to be talking about tools.
I think we have one on the board.
Yeah.
Maybe if we dug around a little in the past things that have been created, but we did have a handout.
I'll talk more about that on the business outreach tools under new business.
There's some fun stuff there. Anything else on that topic for now?
So I've been around, flat tattooing. 12 tattoos, a few of the other smaller kind of alternative, lifestyle places, but without knowing really what. My full role here is, it was more of like, hey, I'm on the board,
Right.
call me, and as I learn, I'm gonna teach you kind of thing. So I need to be that kind of educated. On what it is you want from me and what, I can provide. And after that, I'll hit the ground running.
Right.
But yeah, so I've been out and about, but without having all the information I need, I don't really. Haven't given too much.
I appreciate that. It's definitely an ongoing process. I see the subcommittee meetings as the best way for
Yeah.
everybody to share.
Yeah.
Really, what kinds of things spark great conversations. And we're definitely happy. I mean, if you want to come in and sit down with us for any time, that's fine. Otherwise, we'll definitely bring you up to speed
Yeah,
as we all learn a little bit too.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, new business,
If I may, but
Yes.
annual report is on there.
yeah,
I don't know, do we have any update on that?
nothing at this moment.
Just wanted to
Yeah.
double check.
We'll circle back.
Sounds good.
The report for last year, it's being provided to the council, is that the report you're talking about?
Yeah,
Okay,
Is there a date for that? For the presentation?
no, it's
Still in progress at this
Yeah.
point.
correct.
And again, we're happy to work with you
Okay,
to kind of bring it to final state and maybe you can bring it in front of the committee next month.
right. Bill and I had talked about doing it together or,
Yeah, that's fine. I just
Okay.
haven't heard anything and.
Yeah.
When I get something on my calendar, I'm there.
Yeah.
That's how I do it.
I'll do a little
If it's
more.
not on my calendar, I can only go by my calendar. I'm a robotic with that.
that's step by step.
Sounds good, thanks.
Okay. Center Groton sewer connection, under new business.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to provide an update on this. As you may recall, last month, we had a business representative come to public communications and wanted to get this on the agenda for this month. That business owner couldn't be here, but we'll definitely bring her up to speed. We've been in touch with her in the interim. But because it is on the agenda, I'm happy to just give you a report of where things are at with that. And ask questions and then we can continue to take whatever action is appropriate. So what we're describing is, and the question was Center Groton, the intersection of Route 117 and 184. Specifically bringing sanitary sewer utility to that intersection and really the business district. That has been in the plans for a long time in terms of certainly it's part of the plan of development for that to happen. It was probably about 10 years ago that there was a bigger push. It would be about a mile-long connection from where Mystic Marriott is now running north along Route 117 to the center and then service the commercial parcels in that area. Estimating the cost on something like this is really tough, but I think it's in the ballpark of about $5 million right now, a full cost for that extension. It would happen exclusively within the right of way. It would just be really buried into a trench. So just to say that it is something that's been on our radar for a while. One strategy, the original strategy was, are we going to go to bond for that? And that didn't go anywhere. And so there was no movement on making that happen. For a lot of that stretch. The next strategy that was brought up was as the benefit of the adoption of tax increment financing. So tax increment financing now town-wide ordinance, which allows the establishment of districts within which some revenues would be returned to developers in those districts. This is an example of where if a TIF were established at that at the Center Groton location, then developers in there could, get financing, pay for that extension, that sewer extension, knowing that that would help them with higher development density, and then ultimately they'd get revenues back as well over time. That remains a possibility, but because of the ups and downs of the commercial market in the last 6 years, there's not been any other movement on that. So it brings us to the current state of affairs, which is you may have an awareness that a lot of money from the state and the federal level has been made available to be responsive to economic issues. Infrastructure typically is a really good qualifier. As a matter of fact, especially with state money, they specifically look for what they call shovel-ready projects, and this definitely qualifies as a shovel-ready project. So over the past probably 6 to 9 months, we've heard from the state specifically under different types of projects, utility infrastructure grant that Groton might pay for. Paige mentioned that the state had actually solicited infrastructure projects of the town staff, and we provided that among others on a list to them. So these are the kinds of things that Paige and I are now following up on to see, is this going to be funded and can we move forward on it? So it's definitely a priority for us, and we see a couple different ways this can happen. But just with anything, it's going to take a few things to fall into place to make that happen.
It's very much tied to housing, isn't it? Wouldn't it be an important driver? I mean, we're trying to promote.
Right, so there has been a conceptual proposal on a larger parcel on the northwest corner of 117 and 184. That was primarily housing, numbered in the hundreds, just a few hundred units, which is pretty significant for that area. That would require this connection to be able to make that development happen.
But also having sewer infrastructure is kind of important to drive Groton's development for that generally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that
Since it
the-
is an
the-
area that's designated.
Tim Hortons property inclusive area that we looked at many years ago. I'm just trying to,
Right, so there's a lot of, it's a patchwork of ownership right now.
right.
That might be a hindrance. Like I said, all the pieces have to fall into place for that, but to your point, justifying this expenditure, this project to address, in whatever small way, our
Right.
housing need, it's definitely justified. That was just to bring everybody up to speed, and want to make sure that the folks who asked about this, that we make sure that they are aware of where things are at and any other ideas they have, or we're open to them about making this happen.
Are you gonna be able to provide any kind of range of timeline for this person? They've already been waiting for years, right? So,
Right, no, those are really difficult, but now that we've made those initial inquiries about potential grant programs, hopefully some of that will materialize and there'll be a better sense of if we qualify, when those when those due dates are. But as it stands, I'm not aware of any hard and fast dates right now.
Sam, is there a possibility, the 117, that parcel, I think Olsen owns it, or whatever the abbreviation is, near the overpass, is, because that's that's on 117 also, right? Or not, it's on Flanders Road, and it's connecting, they want to connect.
I think that what I'll tell you is that most of the industrial properties kind of surrounding Mystic Marriott and the industrial park behind Mystic Marriott, they already have access to largely to sewer and
They
water.
do.
So the one project that runs to the north, I think it may be a short run if they wanted to do something and they could attach on the south end. An example would be LBI, which is on the east
Right.
side.
Yeah.
That would benefit from this,
Okay.
should the need arise. Leanne, you have a question?
Yeah, it's kind of been an on and off situation, but the apartment complex that's been on the board for at the end of Toll Gate Road on 184. One of the things that was discussed with that was the fact that they need sewer. So if they do something there, they were talking about bringing the sewer line down 117, but they were gonna cut through the back. And at one time, there was conversation with them that the town could work with them possibly to bring it up to, I'm getting that right, There was something that was gonna be done, but they were planning on bringing it through behind the properties on 117. And there was conversation about bringing it out to the intersection of 184 and 117, because it would do so much more for the area. There was also one time a project that was going to go in at the intersection of, and you probably said that when you said northwest, but I don't know the directions well enough to know. That was a large project. And I know the people that own most of that property are still hoping that that's going to come to fruition, but none of that's going to happen. Unless somebody gets really behind trying to make this move forward.
Well, that is the property I was referring to. As Bill said, that would be behind the former Tim Hortons.
Right.
Right.
Only to say that if a developer of that property came to the town and wanted to try to negotiate and institute a tax increment financing, then they could move forward with it on the private, from the private end. So they wouldn't need, and they would need support, but they wouldn't need other town funding to make that happen. That's what the tip is for.
Now, my mind's getting so it's not as sharp as it used to be, but when they were doing this also, there had been some talk about another source for sewerage. And the state came in and was adverse to it. Do you have any memory of that?
No, as far as I'm aware, and I was just checking for a sewer district map. As far as I'm aware, Center Groton is designated as one of those sewer expansion areas, and I'm not aware of any kind of state intervention that would prevent that from happening.
Because I'm sure you're aware of the fact that another company has come in and they bought everything that Gold Star Homes had. And they want to do a project in that area also. But I'm sure that they're waiting on sewers. And I know the trailer park just up 117 a little bit is very anxious to have them. Because, they all sit pretty close together and it's pretty hard to have a septic system that's going to work correctly.
And that's on the Groton side, it's not over the Ledger line?
No, just,
I know where you're talking, so I didn't know where the line is.
yeah, the line's quite a bit
That's
further
closer to
out.
Route 12.
It's on, no, if you go across 184 and 117, it's up on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's almost on the line of Ledger Road, I think.
No, actually, Ledger's line is up probably another mile or so.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
I thought it was,
It's
Okay.
way up 117.
Yeah.
Sure, so, that's really the starting point, is to see what we can get funded. Or to see if this is driven by a private developer with the establishment of a tip. Anybody who is a property owner and they would benefit from that, they're welcome to come and talk to staff, and we can.
Well, we had
have
a
a
whole
general-
group coming last week for the meeting. I had several people from that area coming in to talk with you. And with the change, I couldn't get it resurrected. But if you could maybe put it on the agenda again, I could try to get those property owners to come on in and talk with us, because my feeling is when a town doesn't grow, it dies. It may be slowly, but it dies. And right now, we don't have enough growth. And as many of you know, we can't do much anyways till the council decides on how they're gonna go forward. They've held up any projects for 9 months now.
Well, I can see us having this on the agenda for next month,
Right.
so that the original property owner who came in could just get on the record. I know small business people are busy. They are welcome to just email Paige or email the town as well with their thoughts if they can't come into
Yeah, I think
it is really handled at the staff level for now. As much as we like to hear from businesses, if they're busy, they can just email us.
Yeah, I think it's great to have it on the agenda for next time, and also to raise the profile so we have more dialogue in the community about it. Get more, this is definitely one of those areas we can be effective on outreach and getting people to understand what's at stake and what the discussion is and how it impacts. So maybe we can discuss that in the outreach.
And I should clarify myself. What I'm saying right now, I'm not saying as liaison for the RTM. So I I step back, I'm just a citizen right now, but I feel very passionate about anything that we try to get going in this town. But the RTM didn't tell me to come here and say that.
Well, you don't have to, you're town council right now. so
Oh,
liaison.
okay.
You're okay, you're safe.
That's all I had, Bob, on that.
Okay.
If there are no other
Just
questions.
Leanne, so you're saying next meeting, there might be a group to address this specific topic. Do we have to put that on the agenda that we'll be taking?
No, I think it's just open. I put it on the agenda.
Well, see, we usually have public communication. I just want to make sure for the process, that we have public communication, which is usually what we listen, and it can be from anything. This is specifically for the sewers. So we can put it on the agenda as such.
We'll
that
plan to put it down.
We're having a conversation with outside the commission. Right.
Yeah.
Because we do have to allow people against that type of stuff to have a voice also.
Right, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Community Investment Fund. So I'm having a meeting with Sierra Patrick in the city next week to discuss ways that we can coordinate with the city EDC. And I had some discussion with staff, and Paige brought up that there might be some changes to the regulations that will allow us to help the city qualify for some different CIP monies that can go to planning. So I'm going to get more clarity on that and then discuss with Sierra how we can support them for that. And if anyone has any input, the meeting, like I said, is in a week or so. So love any feedback or advice, or if anybody has ideas more of how we can coordinate that. I think George had brought it up that it's important, and that was one of the things that I wanted to do, is try to coordinate with EDCs throughout Groton especially, but the region, of how we can synergize what we do. And so that's one of the things.
If you let me know the date, I'd like very much to be there.
Okay.
I'll be quiet. I'll try.
That's so fun.
Business outreach tools. So the staff showed me some great stuff that they've done digitally and things to kind of support us, and I'll hand it over. I didn't want to keep it in my back pocket that you present.
You bet. Thanks, Bob. So I don't know if everybody's gotten a chance to register at the greatergroton.com website. If you've not, we certainly encourage you to do so. And ultimately, that's going to be the platform, one of the key platforms that we use to raise the profile of the EDC. And I know you don't all have your sheet with you, Bob. Bill's got a copy. I just printed out a copy because it's not exactly live, but what we have is a platform where you come to a landing page. The link would be grotonbusiness.com. And to your point, Kyle, as well, you know, we're going to begin a conversation with folks when you meet with them, and then we're going to have leave behinds. And if it says grotonbusiness.com, then that's going to be a way that they can get back in touch with all of us. This actually replaces the EDC page that's on exploremoregroton.com. And what we want to do ultimately is get everybody's profile on there. The example that was included in the packet has got great photos from Bob and Suzanne, as well as a short write-up. And this is all designed so that when we do follow-ups, or if a business goes to that website and then they see your profile photo, then they can recognize, oh, you know, you're with the EDC, that's the person who stopped by, and then have contact information just to facilitate these conversations. The other thing that's going to be on this webpage is a survey for any business owners and managers. Again, it's the kind of thing that you can direct folks to it. If you have a conversation and you say, hey, we've got a website with a quick survey, just a few questions, just to get a sense of maybe, you know, do they have expansion plans, or is there something that they have a question about? So that's going to be on there along with profiles. And then it also has a lot of links. You've already discussed about the benefits of chamber membership. So we've got links to the chamber websites, as well as information about coming to this meeting or joining remotely, and also starting a business. So that's that's the kind of support that we're trying to put into place. And to Leanne's question earlier, what we want to do is take those postcards and update them with not only the new website direct link, but also a QR code. And that could be a leave behind. And I know we'll talk about this in more detail at subcommittee meetings, but I can imagine you go in there, they're really busy, or, the only person there is just, a lead hire, but there's no manager present. And all you have to do is just say, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna leave this behind. Could you leave it for your manager or owner? And there's a chance that that's a good way to follow up, and it should help facilitate all of you building relationships with the business owners.
On that website, the current EDC website, what are we eliminating and replacing this with? I mean, there's some things on there now that may not be included in the new website.
Really, it'll include all the relevant information, but it'll be much more user friendly and talk a lot more about how this organization is designed to support Groton businesses. So it's actually rewritten so that if you're from the user standpoint of an existing business, you learn really quickly what's your mission, what are you guys all about.
Will there be anything that would require updating, some semi-frequent updating besides the commissioners that we have now? There's additional information in there that we want to include or no?
It's definitely, we update it all the time.
Okay.
So if anybody sees something and they either feel like it should be updated or they have a suggestion as to what to put on there, especially if you're having an experience where you're meeting businesses and they're asking the same question or asking for the same resource,
Okay.
all that is really useful feedback to make this landing page the most helpful as possible.
I
In
can't
the-
recall if that has a calendar. Does it have a calendar of events?
We have a link to the events right now, and technically that's the best we've achieved, but we're never against any kind of solutions if we can find one for that. But right now, that's what we've got.
It's one of the things I think the subcommittee, you're gonna have great, they have so much resources and are so enthusiastic to support with these tools. It's just a matter of designing it, and we can have a very deep conversation about, all the different ways to implement it, but they're ready to go. And one of the ideas I think is very attractive is funneling the information to one central area, then we can collect it and the staff can kind of parse it and give us some, break it down to what targets and, what priorities are sussing out. That makes a lot of sense. But again, something at the subcommittee, I think we can figure out.
Absolutely. No, there's technical things we can do, and any other ideas that we have as we move forward, we can adapt. The other benefit of having this be the website on the greatergroton.com platform is we can require that they at least give us an email, if not fully registered as a user in order to fill out a survey. So now we're building a mailing list of business owners, and then we can use that to do, to outreach for any kind of events or topics that come up that need discussing. So that's the real benefit. Ultimately, the goal is to keep building that mailing list based on all the folks that you guys reach out to, as well as people that go directly to the site. The other element I wanted to mention as a tool is we've created a web form, which is an outreach report. So I'm glad you guys mentioned that you reached out to some businesses. What we're going to do in the next few weeks, I'd say, is get a link out to you. That'll be a direct link to an online form, and it's really short. It was in the packet. I actually screen grabbed it, and it's just two pages, but it's really about 6 or 8 questions. It's all the basics. Who did you visit? Can you give me any kind of contact information? Was there something that they brought up specifically? What's their business category? Did they request a follow-up? So it's just going to help us to, as Bob said, keep collecting that data about who do we reach out to, and do we need to adjust our game plan to make sure we cover as much as possible.
Now, we've been to this exercise before, not too long ago. a couple of years ago, where we outreach and reached out to businesses and everybody had their list of people and businesses they contacted. Usually the smaller businesses, because you've got CVS and all, you know, big wine, big food organizations, so you know, obviously Pfizer. But there was email contacts for those businesses. Do we still have those, that data in the system somewhere? We have to revisit that information.
I'd say that in terms of data, whatever we happen to collect in that window of time, certainly we have it somewhere. It wasn't extensive in terms of its volume, and I think, I see this as kind of a fresh start.
Yeah, that's fine. I
So,
just didn't
for
know if there's
sure.
something we already had populated that we could also, include in.
We'll try to merge as we work at the staff level to try to get a sense of maybe an overall business directory. We'll just
Yeah.
incorporate whatever data we can. But when you guys go out there and somebody gives you a very valid email address, that's the best thing you can possibly get.
And then the other thing too is you don't want redundancy where there's familiar relationships with businesses and we're duplicating the effort. And I don't know how you can prevent that.
I'll just say that, okay, I think that this is something that we can speak in depth at a subcommittee meeting. It's certainly never been a concern of ours that somebody got visited by two different people, because it would only show them how enthusiastic we are. And touching that bill.
That's what I was reaffirming, because we've beat this for all the years I've been on it, Susan. Redundancy is not the issue we've ever had here. It's our people being outreach. So if I'm talking to somebody and someone else goes in and talk to them.
Yeah.
Because we have multiple people that are involved with the EDC and they're like, okay, these guys are actually kind of organized.
But here's,
We'd like you to get complaints. Another EDC member
No,
visited
that's not
me
gonna
today.
it's great.
But there's new people too, which is nice.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you is that the benefit of this outreach report is that if you put in there who you visited and what date you visited them, we can generate reports and send them back to you saying it's been 6 months, it's been a year since you visited this person. And it'll go right to you and maybe just be a reminder, hey, it's not a bad time to check back in. So that is the goal over time, is to organize the data.
It's a very simple tool, but it's really effective because you capture all the information rather than an email or a little note here. If you just fill it out, whatever you have, just put it in there, and then on the back end, it can be coordinated and synthesized, because a lot of times we have.
Save some meetings to have it.
Absolutely.
Without, delving too much into it now, is there any social media presence?
That's a great question and something we can definitely keep talking about. Our division, Groton Economic Development, we run a Facebook page. We also have a LinkedIn page. So if there's something that was going to be posted, that would be a decent place to put it. And then we try to find other ways to push that information out. But I think it's a valid topic for conversation forward, because right now there's nothing official.
I'm a procedures guy. I love ideas like that, like have a procedure for how we utilize social media or whatever to continue to push consistently messaging out there. Over time, it has to be done consistently. As you know, if you do it one-off, people don't pay attention. But if people get used to these channels putting out useful information, then we can really use that as well as our, foot traffic to kind of grow.
The goal is to capture the attention of small businesses in Groton. Every small business in Groton have an Instagram account, because that's how they're promoting themselves. Facebook or whatever. And it cuts out the middleman too. If you don't make it somewhere and if you have a business page on Instagram or Facebook, by just having a friend you, or in this case, the EDC account, you by default have their contact info, because they're trying to also promote themselves. So I feel like that's something we should probably get moving on.
Yeah.
Sooner than later.
I like it. I think it's also important for the community to see how economic development fits into growth and,
Right.
quality of life issues as well. So there's a whole series of sort of, knock-on benefits to that.
That's all I had on those.
Yeah.
And what's your
Thanks, Sam.
questions? You bet.
Thank you very much. townwide zoning text amendments. I know it was in the packet. You wanna?
Yeah, I'm
Jump in
happy
on
to
that
just
again?
touch on the highlights of that. They were in the packet and just to see if there's any questions or need for discussion. There are two zoning text amendments that are going to be before the Planning and Zoning Commission at tomorrow. They're meeting tomorrow evening. And the expectation would be that they would vote and find out the level of support for these two amendments. I'll touch on both of them briefly. One of them has to do with accessory dwellings in Groton, and the other one is about zoning for cannabis operations. The accessory dwelling is pretty straightforward. Again, I'm happy to answer questions. I don't need to go into a ton of detail, but you may be aware of the statewide ruling that by default allowed property owners to build accessory dwelling units. Within Groton, that was actually already approved. It was already in the books, but the Groton zoning language limited the size to 800 square feet, where the state ruling actually allows for a 1,000 square foot maximum size. So it was also the difference between the existing local language and the state mandate was that the state mandate only requires one parking space off-street for each accessory dwelling unit, whereas the existing local language required it based on the number of bedrooms. So what the Planning and Zoning Commission decided to pursue is to align their zoning language with the state's. And so that's the proposal that's going to go in front of everybody. So very straightforward on that one, but definitely wanted to bring it in front of everybody. Specifically due to its impact on housing and housing affordability in town. And I'm happy to jump into the next one if there are any other questions on that.
Anyone have comments on accessory dwelling units or anything?
So I can build a tiny house, like my property.
By right,
I
yeah.
can rent it out to people,
That's correct.
or I can use it and sell my house to somebody else.
I find it fascinating. It's an interesting discussion with also short-term rentals where they're
Right.
banned. You could now build an ADU. So it's an interesting
It's
world
interesting.
in there.
It is, and this isn't, an update on short-term rentals. That's sort of kind of in a holding pattern right now. I mean, it's but it does raise the question. So it's the kind of thing where if you guys feel like
It's an area I don't think
Support it.
people understand. It's not been talked about statewide.
Is
I
it a
think,
detached dwelling? Is it a detached dwelling that,
it can be either attached or detached.
okay. It's kind of like an in-law home or something, in-law space, very spacious, so square feet.
It can certainly be as small,
It was smaller, yeah.
Thinking of the millennial children that we all have, but I have now,
Oh.
that might be in property in their tiny house.
That's what the basement's for.
I don't want them.
No, I know. With a lock.
I love them, but sorry.
I don't know. So
another reason for sewers.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm looking for every way to promote
For sure.
infrastructure.
it's certainly a housing
Support.
strategy.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do one without it being something that's on a sewer line.
So there will be other existing zoning that would constrain it, like setbacks and that sort of thing. But the idea is that this is a strategy that's more available to folks than it's ever been. The other text amendment that is going to be reviewed is with regards to cannabis operations. Now, in October of 2021, the Planning and Zoning Commission decided to prohibit all uses in town as a type of moratorium in order to have the opportunity to revisit, review the impacts, and then make a decision. So the state does require that each town make a ruling on what's allowed and what's not allowed. That's with regards to operations or the prohibition of operations of all kinds. You can also comment on the hours of operation, the zoning where it's allowed, as well as proximity to relevant established, other establishments. So what's being proposed is kind of a series of zone text amendments where different uses would be allowed in different types of zones. And I can walk through this really quickly. So retailers or hybrid retailers would be allowed in the regional commercial, the mixed town center, as well as mixed use industrial zones. Cultivators and micro cultivators would be allowed in regional commercial, mixed use industrial, general industrial, micro cultivators in some of the rural residential zones. Delivery services, manufacturing, packaging, and transporting in industrial zones. Food and beverage manufacturers in many of the commercial zones, as well as the industrial zones, and also by special permit in the rural residential zone. And larger only, that would be small scale. Larger scale food and beverage in the industrial zones only. The other element of this that they are voting on has to do with making sure that, these would be approved by on a conditional basis. And then those conditions would bring into play the requirements for, in the case of cultivation, it's indoor use only and no retail operations. In every case, there'd be a required security plan on file with the police. And they all have to have special permits from the state, the permits that regulate this. The other aspect of this that's being brought in has to do with, especially those retail uses in terms of proximity. There is a minimum distance that they need to be set back from some of those types of sensitive uses that you would imagine. Places of worship, hospital, veterans homes, schools, those type of similar uses. And there's also a requirement that there's a 1,500-foot distance between retail establishments. So they're no closer to each other than that. That's generally the takeaway, and through my discussions with planning staff, generally aligns with type of the existing uses that we have. It obviously is a different use and it's treated especially, but especially with, you look at the cultivator and the industrial use that's being proposed. It all seems very straightforward. And in the one case, the hybrid, hybrid retail, we have a medical dispensary, and they could apply for retail operations as well.
Thank you for the briefing. One question, are they looking for an opinion or any was weighing in? If anybody has any.
We definitely I think staff definitely wanted to put this in front of the commission, to have the awareness. It's timely with the meeting tomorrow. If there were any thoughts specifically on an interest in supporting this, or if there's something that you didn't agree with and you felt like you wanted to kind of support a different approach. So, but certainly for you to feel comfortable with it and feel like that there's no need to represent you, that's completely acceptable as well.
I would prefer not to, unless anybody has any concern or they want to say something officially to share any.
No, I just
feedback.
have a question.
Sure.
Does the town have to adopt that they're gonna allow it in the town first? I always thought that the town had to agree that, yes, we will allow this, and have we done that yet?
So it's all part and
But,
parcel.
across the, like Stonington voted on it, and yet each town seems to vote saying, yes, we're gonna allow this in our town or not allow it, and then they come up with a plan after that, and it seems like we're coming up with a plan. Have we already voted that we're allowing this in Groton?
In this case, it's all bundled together. And just the way it played out since their first vote was that it was prohibited. Then now what they're doing is they're saying we're allowing it conditionally. And these are actually the
Well,
parameters. under
but that's the,
which they can-
yeah, I'm not, I just, as I said, more informed as a, because the conditional it's conditional everywhere. Like 1,500 between, that's how package stores, they have so it's like, okay, we're allowing it, just, these are the parameters that the towns have set up, and that's what I didn't understand. We've never had a vote on saying. Before it was prohibited, and I thought that was it, and this, they're gonna say, okay, now we're gonna allow it under these conditions.
That's correct.
So the first vote is we're allowing it, the second vote is under these conditions.
I think,
But
I
that's
think
planning and zoning, that's not.
it's planning and zoning.
It has nothing to do with the council,
That's correct. It does not have.
right? So the council could still say, well, it's still prohibited, so it doesn't matter. That's why.
In this case, planning and zoning can move forward with their, with their proposal, with their vote, and they can demonstrate that kind of support, and then.
Then the council still has to approve the sale of it in distribution in the town of Groton. I'm trying, that's why
I don't wanna misspeak with regards to the exact step after that.
right, that's why I get confused, but I know Stonington had a vote actually it was put on the vote to the public.
I have no information that that's
Yep.
gonna happen.
Gotta happen sometime.
Well,
Yeah, that's what I get concerned with
It's a
is,
little, it's very backward.
yeah,
This will encourage a vote to go to a positive.
right, because it seems like it's, yeah. That's why I always get concerned that sometimes it's unintended consequences.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.
Chair report, we've covered everything in little bits and pieces here. Support for the subcommittee and everybody involved. Let's go right on to staff reports.
sure, one thing I wanted to mention, and I know you've got your list in the packet, but, so the ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan, that's being dispersed. That's a process, but at this point, it's been approved by the RTM Finance Committee. And now the actual language is happening where every beneficiary is gonna commit to, an agreement in terms of the actual allocation. One of the projects at staff level that we actually submitted was a grant for small businesses. So the details of that are going to be finalized, and then we're gonna have a whole marketing campaign to get that out in front of everybody. But this is just one example where we would really benefit from having you guys be able to get this out in front of folks. So those details will be to come then. Another example that I wanted to mention on here was the Claude Chester Reuse Public Meeting. So the town's moving forward with hiring folks to figure out, kind of scope out what it would be like to put some kind of aquatic center at that, as well as some fields at the Claude Chester site. And what we found in this case is that, using greatergroton.com was very beneficial in this process. And actually, we'd say that we had about at least 2,000 people go onto the website over the last handful of months to take a look at various proposals, concepts, and different, preference surveys. So it's just a great example of how we can use the tool. And so as stuff like this comes up, we're hoping, again, as you guys drive traffic to greatergroton.com, they can actually get linked over, and they'll get updates about other projects that are happening in town. And the last one I wanted to mention was just to follow up on what Bob was saying. The Community Investment Fund in May 1st, that they are going to be rolling out the notice of funding and the specific parameters that are going to go along with that. But it totals up to the millions of dollars for transformational projects. and Groton is an eligible community. The idea of you guys reaching out to the city of Groton is really useful because we expect that in May, when those parameters come out, they're gonna have a streamlined process for getting somewhere around $250,000 for a planning survey. A planning study, and then the idea would be maybe we could work with the city of Groton to have a planning study to figure out what kind of projects could compete for much larger sums of money that include infrastructure and development. So the idea of you guys starting to work with them is really timely. And I think we would compete well for that dollar amount, and then that would set us up to apply for a bigger grant for a bigger project. And that's all I had for the update.
Thank you. Anybody? Anything?
Standards and poor rating, it said early April for when our rating's coming out. Do we have any word on that, or is it not early enough in April?
I haven't heard of any.
I just
update.
want to, yeah.
Is there anything on, you know, would they have the parking public hearing or what, I forget, if they had the, you know, feedback from public regarding the changes or suggestions?
You're referring to the downtown Mystic parking
Yeah.
study?
Yeah, study.
They had some, they kind of rolled out which recommendations they want to move forward with. We had some feedback on that. That was, I think that was back in February.
Okay,
There's actually a page on greatergroton.com dealing with that specifically with all the slides from that day, as well as the current status. So I was not at that meeting, so I couldn't tell you specifically what's the next step, but you can always follow it on greatergroton.com.
yeah, there was a business in Mystic, Spencer and Lynn, I think, and they were asking about it. I talked to the owner of the business, so, you know, they were curious about what was going on with that. And I know it's been a while, but I just didn't think keep track of the, you know, what the update was. Yeah, thanks,
Sure.
Sam.
Yep.
Liaison reports?
All right, thank you. Steve Sandell, Subbase. The Navy Exchange Commissary and Subforce Museum put on a nice little event, there in the, Navy Exchange food court, saluting the Vietnam War and particularly the Vietnam War era veterans, which is very nice. It's a nice event to remind us of a war that's maybe not often discussed as much as some of the other ones, so it was nice. We had a little change in leadership at Subbase. Number 2 at the base, our XO, as we call him, executive officer, the captain, changed. The board was Commander Preston. He just retired after 20 years of great service, and we now have our new XO, Commander Brad Boyd, who took over in March. He's from Ohio. He served on USS Dallas and Bremerton submarines, and you might remember him as he was the officer in charge of the historic ship Nautilus in the museum back in January 2018 to April 2021. So he's not a stranger to Subbase certainly, but we welcome him and wish him all his best. It's a very stressful role. And I'll mention that Mr. Preston, who just retired, he did a great job carrying us through COVID. He was instrumental in you know, keeping all the Subbase activities and keeping our mission going during COVID, setting up a lot of virtual meetings and all that kind of stuff. We really had a lot to do with that. We just had a underwater ribbon cutting for our pool, which is kind of interesting. Captain under the water and cut the ribbon. It was an 11-month project to totally redo our pool, whole, you know, roof and insulation and lighting and HVAC updates and everything else. But that's great. It's something that gets a lot of use, not only recreationally, but it's also a training for the divers and different things in that. So good for us to have that. And lastly, I put a couple of little write-ups in here about some famous female folks that were in the Navy in honor of Women's History Month. One of which is the first female hard hat diver, hull technician Tobias, and she actually was, again, as I said, one of the first divers, hard hat divers in the Navy, and our dive locker, the divers work, And have all their equipment that's named after their own base, the Bias Hall, so.
Right.
That's interesting, and then we also have a little, thing here about, engineering officer Christina Faraci, who's, served aboard the USS North Carolina. And during our ops meetings, we had several meetings, we had different ladies come in and talk about their service, it's actually very interesting. So, so that's what I have. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Leanne, do you have?
Yeah, one thing that I want, pertaining to the RTM. The RTM was very upset with how they got to vote on the special monies. You know, it was a line by line for different entities that were receiving the money. And the council went by it line by line, and when it came to the RTM, we could only vote yes or no.
Right.
And that was not popular at all. You don't have an RTM to sit there and go yes or no. It should have been reviewed as other budget items are. I realize it's a different process, but still should not have been handled that way. And I'm hoping that the next round of monies might be handled a little better when it's coming from the council to the RTM. Let's see, there was one other thing I wanted to mention. I kind of swapped back and forth between the RTM and myself, but I was wondering if you were aware, and I know I've discussed it with some of the RTM members. We did not get any bonding money this year from the state. New London got a huge amount, Norwich got a large amount, Stonington got money, and Groton did not get any from anything that I can find to read.
Is it given or requested, man? Is it given or requested?
I'm sorry?
Do you have to request it or is it on?
No, your legislators work for it up in Hartford,
Okay.
and
But it's on a project, you requested on a project, but.
the bonding money, well, yes, somebody, but a lot of times it's just decisions they make up there, but there could be a particular project. But either way, we didn't get any. And I think that's very unfortunate that would happen, because,
Yeah.
you know, and some of the other areas, we're talking millions of dollars that came in for projects, so that's very worrisome. And there was one other thing, I got so busy writing notes here, you all were so informative tonight. I think that George at another meeting might be able to talk a little bit more about that bonding, because I'm not exactly sure what his capacity is, but I know somehow he's involved a little bit. And I guess, the other thing that the RTM is looking for, and I'm sure you all are here too, is some resolution with the Mystic parking. You know, that's an unbelievable impact on our town. And it really is affecting local people enjoying downtown
Right.
Mystic. And a parking solution has to come up. And you know, and I know they've been meeting, I know our town manager's been working very hard on it, and I know the head of the what's their title in Stonington? It's a woman that's,
The first select woman. I believe.
yeah, been working very hard on it, but there's nothing coming about. And you know, to me, that also falls into the EDC. You know, because it's got to be resolved. And there was an article where the state was saying maybe they were going to have to step in and resolve it. And I don't think that would be a good
I
idea.
don't know how they would.
Yeah,
It's
you shall not drive cars.
anecdotal on that, and I'll just put the Merchants, because I try to shop down there.
Yeah.
Is one of the biggest things they have about it is the locals actually shop in the stores there.
Yeah.
It's the tourist looks
They
at the
don't,
stores
they
there,
don't.
and none of us, if I can't park, I don't shop.
Right.
So that, I've got from several of the ones that I actually frequent, they're like, it's so nice when you guys come in, because we actually buy.
No,
Yeah.
I have my 33 minutes in the parking lot, so I'll run to my one place
No,
and then go back to my
bookstore.
car, because I'm cheap. So I don't want to pay for parking in my own town.
But the bookstore, the
Yep.
couple of the clothes, they say, without a say, the locals actually shop.
Yeah,
Why?
and it's true because I did, again, I didn't write down who I spoke with, but I always asked merchants how it's going and they said. The people that visit us, for us, they don't buy.
No.
And that's sad because they took up all the parking spaces, so.
But they, so said that's doing fine.
That's right, it's all
Mariners doing
the
fine with it.
restaurants. yeah,
All the
which is
restaurants are doing fine with it, but
Yeah.
the shops, Virgie's one of them.
true.
Because we shop there quite a lot.
Yes.
It's just like, if I can't get in there, I don't know.
And I think that there's so many, obviously we're attracting people from, advertising in New York and what have you, they're coming into our community. And how much parking can we create? I don't think there'd ever be enough parking created.
We're gonna
So
have
the
to
only
do
thing
a
I can think
parking
it's gotta be
garage.
some, I don't think public transportation, but some sort of transportation off. Area, otherwise I just don't see a solution. You can't build all these garages everywhere.
I would certainly encourage all of you to go to the greatergroton.com website. The full study is there as well as slides that summarize. The strategy in parking is try to eat away at the demand and address it in every small way that you can. And it's as much about management.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing process. And yes, it's not easy, but I would say efforts are being made. I'd say this is looked as the best it's looked in a long time in terms of the efforts that are being made and cooperatively.
I do like how they've made the parking space lines and all the side streets and everything. They really try to create, those sort of spaces that make it clearly defined. I think that's somewhat helped. And when they redid the sidewalks and everything in Mystic, they thought they lost parking spaces, but they actually didn't. It was just maybe one or two, but they made it better for, the curves and not parking, right up to the curb.
I agree with Sam. I think we've made a lot more inroads in the conversations that have been going on thing. The one constant I always hear is the people that just go park, camp out. And that's it. And they're like, well, there's enforcement. It's like, and there is no Groton enforcement.
No.
Not parking. So that's why, but I agree. I think we've made a lot of inroads. So some of the ideas of doing the meters with the cards and the validations, there's a lot of things that have been on the table. And then some people say, yeah, that's gonna take away, you have it meters. But there are ways of dealing with it. But enforcement is one of the, the higher something on that.
The old days are gone where local just went down and shopped and ate.
Well, there was nothing to buy there anyway at that time, too, because I was around.
Yeah.
And one of the things I just,
Sorry, the noise, the noise.
I think that's,
Big noise.
Been here 40 years,
remember
so
too,
I
if you're
know.
thinking through this and you have a specific idea, we can use greatergroton.com to you as a note taker as well. Sometimes I forget myself and just, because that way the information gets here, like,
Right.
and they can synthesize it as well. Because a lot of times, late at night, you come up with a brilliant parking solution and jot it on a napkin and then it's gone and Mystic suffers.
Parking.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Bob, because actually there's a mapping tool on the platform where we've had many people put little flags on there and they indicate issues or proposals. So, yeah, that's what it's for.
Also,
Mystic? Well.
It's only a mile apart. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it fills up to the point where there's actually private parking that gets filled up, which is, I know that's more of a nuisance than anything else, where people just pull in and. That's my driveway, that's, they go overboard with it. The churches have been accommodating, and so there have been different avenues.
Yeah.
I say we turn the state property into one big thing and shuttle them up the river.
Depends
There's that dock there,
yeah,
get a shuttle, that's, these are things we've discussed over a period of time, but it takes.
they do need to get a water
Yeah, right.
taxi going.
Yeah.
Cause you would park anywheres if you're gonna get on a water taxi to come in.
Absolutely.
It's a great idea. I personally like that idea of just.
It is a great idea, but then you're talking channeling and then, because we went down that path.
Well, the Seaport's exploring that this
Right.
summer.
Because it's an actual link to all the different destinations.
Right.
And that new, whether it's city hall, town hall, they have a dock there that could accommodate launch type of shuttles.
Yeah.
Right.
That would be good.
But now you have channels and boats and, you know.
Hey, if we did it in the city, you can do it over in Mystic,
The
you know, the
Shuttle.
ones that we have going. That go
Heritage?
from Groton City to New London to the
the
port.
heritage,
Oh, yeah.
And this year, have you heard anything? Maybe you have, but they're supposed to be opening the one at the Nautilus.
It's
Not yet.
Yeah, it was delayed significantly, but it's on, supposedly it's on track to get installed for the season, like in at some point.
That would be wonderful.
Really would,
it's right over here, sort of.
I said the oral school garages.
I agree, yeah, that's
You
a,
don't want us to put buildings, we'll put garages.
I think there'd be a big uproar with the traffic, but that's okay, we'll figure it out.
Well,
All right, anything, any other business? All right,
most to adjourn?
Motion.
second. All those in favor?
Bye.
Good
Opposed?
meeting, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for